Welcome to Chiro Author Insights. I'm with Dr. Nathalie, Beauchamp, an amazing rock star chiropractor, author of Hack Your Health Habits, and co-author of Wellness on the Go. Before we go into those books, I want to share a little bit more about Dr. Nathalie so that you can understand some of the background that she's going to bring to this presentation. And while you sit there humbly listening, Dr. Nat, I want everybody to know that firstly, you're a founder and keynote speaker of the Ottawa Health and Wellness Expo, an amazing event that transforms the health and lives of so many people. A radio and TV personality, a virtual summit host, an event coach and coordinator, a business mentor, and really most importantly, a chiropractor that loves changing the health and lives of her patients and the community, incorporating functional medicine, chiropractic, and life-changing educational principles. One thing I love most, and having worked with Dr. Nat on a virtual summit, she empowers people to live their life at their best, to experience vitality, an absolute rock star in the profession. Welcome, Dr. Nathalie.
Thank you, Marcus. I'm looking forward to chatting with you about our books.
That's amazing what you've done here. I don't only want to talk about the books as well. I want to talk about you as a chiropractor, a functional medicine practitioner, an author, and how that has all come about. So I'm going to begin by asking you to tell a little bit about your story and your background so that people can know about you.
Oh, our stories are starting to be long, Marcus, because we've been in practice for a while. So I guess 24 years for me. I think you're not that far behind or around that numbers. So I guess I'm in Ottawa, Canada, and I graduated 24 years ago after my undergrad in exercise science. And my background, I guess, I was anorexic when I was young. So I struggled immensely, actually, with my weight and, my health overall. And this was prior to Google, where you could look up and find resources, So I ended up at the library trying to read books and trying to, figure out how I would get out of the situation that I was in, because I'm 5'9" and I went down to 89 pounds. So it was I wasn't in a happy place. So for me, and I think a lot of chiropractors relate back to their own journey that we always say, right or wrong, but it's chiropractic that found us and maybe not the other way around. And for me, it's health overall, actually, at first that found me. So I had to heal myself. I had to find solution for me. So I've always been passionate about exercise and fitness and health. I was the crazy kid, when I was 8 years old, making my parents work out in the the basement. It's just, I've had it in me ever since. And then fast forward to chiropractic school. And I have a passion for learning for me. And I also have a passion of transferring that knowledge. And I think what I'm good at, and I think it's because I have always two languages in my head, because I work all day back and forth in French and in English, and discovering that I'm also dyslexic, which wasn't diagnosed back in those days. I had to find a way to simplify things for my own brain and for my own understanding, because when I went to chiropractic school in English, I barely spoke English. So I think I became really good at simplifying things. So I love grabbing a book and figuring out, okay, what do I need to know about this, and how can I translate that to patients or people in actionable steps. So that's my passion about learning and always challenging myself, to stay on top of things. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I did my certification with the Functional Medicine Institute. I did do the certification, not that in Canada it does me much more from my license point of view, but I wanted to have the credibility that comes with it. And as I was doing my courses, I ended up writing the book at the same time, because it made sense. Again, I was learning all about hormones. How can I simplify it so I can understand it better? And I also always said, if you want to know something and understand something good, teach it. Because if you can teach something, then you grasp the concept. And I think if people can understand your teaching, then you really know that you own the content. So it took me 3 years to write my book. It is a tad thick. I didn't anticipate it was going to be this big. I just kept writing and writing, and it truly is the chiropractic lifestyle. I do have there's 62 chapters because I wanted bite-sized chapters so people could consume. I mean, the order is logical, but if somebody wanted to find out more about intermittent fasting, they could just grab that chapter. So for me, it was important to have small chapters, but that were also relevant to everyday living and things that I do, because I'm a big fan of walking the road myself and my journey in health. So that's how I came about writing the book. And as you know, Marcus, editing, you think you're done, you're never done. You just keep editing and switching and tweaking. And because it's health, I mean, I didn't want to put stuff that would get obsolete quickly. And I didn't want to, I really wanted to have the right references and the right information. The last thing I wanted was to have, error in the papers that I've used to write it, but yet keep it simple. And one of the format that I decided on was to not have the 1s and 2s and 3s for the references, because it is for the public. My book, I created an avatar for it, and I was clear on who I was talking to. So she didn't want to be burdened by the references, but they're all there as well at the end.
It's beautiful, and it's 741 pages. It's an absolute tome. It's gold in terms of knowledge, applicable knowledge, useful wisdom. It's a beautiful presentation. It's usable, it's accessible, and as I said, you took knowledge, you implemented it into a format that people could use. I think that's what makes not only an incredible book, but also a person who, when they write their book, has a sense of understanding and bridges the gap between that position of practitioner wanting to help people and having a process of actually being able to help them. So I think it's a fantastic resource, and I know that firstly, it's obviously for the community. It's not purely for practitioners, but practitioners can read it, gain knowledge from it, and share that with their clients as well. But then when you have that as an accessible resource for your patients, also on Amazon, then it becomes an incredible outreach to be able to bring that chiropractic lifestyle, but also the principles of health and wellness into people's lives. So I just want to acknowledge the book. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, and also too, like, and that goes to all the chiropractors out there. What are the things that you keep answering day in and day out? Just, that's kind of how it started. I said, oh, geez, so many people are asking me about this. I should really sit down and write about it. And I had been really diligent to write 2 blog posts a month for the last 12, 14 years. So there was a lot of content there as well that, you could pick from, and you kind of know too what topics are more of interest for people. Because sometimes we think a topic is really valuable, but the interest might not be there as well. And as for the weight, I always joke, you can purchase 2 and you can do bicep curls. So it does, you can use it for exercise.
Absolutely. Now, before we go into the book itself, and I know that there's a program that extends beyond the book, I want to just reverse up a little bit about your journey again, not that personal journey, but your professional journey, because oftentimes when chiropractors, they listen to interviews and maybe they want to develop some level of expertise, or they want to be able to write their own book and develop that authority, but they listen to an interview like this, and I've introduced you, and while I know you come from an incredibly humble position, you are an amazing expert, an incredible authority. You've had such exposure in the media because of this amazing message that you have. But it wasn't always that way. You didn't start as a legend of the industry. You started as a chiropractor like anybody else. So can you share the journey in terms of what you did practically and what was in your mind motivationally to move from, I'm now graduated, I love learning, I want to learn, I'm applying my learning practically. How did it evolve into this superstar status?
Well, thank you, Marcus. I think we have to ask ourselves why we're writing the book. So you could write it to answer the question to your patients and make it more relevant to chiropractic. Like, you could do this, and it'd be amazing if all chiropractors did that as a part of the education process, for the, the experience that patients have in your practice. And if you go at it that way, that's fabulous. You could also go at it that way. If all of us wrote a book that's more health in general, I think we're raising the profession, because when people see the book, oh, she's a chiropractor. They see your book, oh, he's a chiropractor. And I think the more books we can get out there, and all of us, the more exposure we can get, I think we're just raising the profession. And for me, I feel like we may not have enough guidance when it comes to health in Canada, natural health in Canada, especially from a women leadership kind of point of view. So it has been my goal, and is still my goal, to become a leading expert, not just in Canada, but I live here. It's a huge country, and I think there's a big need for it. So that was my point and my goal with my book, to obviously have it used by my patient, and I'm leveraging the book tremendously in my practice, but I also wanted to reach a bigger audience, which I have. I've had fun when I launched the book to do a tour from coast to coast, from Halifax to Vancouver, met a whole bunch of awesome people. It's just, it just gives you a platform, it gives you a tool, it gives you a credibility. It's easier to get on radio interview, TV interview. I've had my own TV show, my own radio show throughout the year. So it just gives you content. It gives you that credibility that you are an author.
Beautiful. And again, if I'm hearing what you're saying there, it all begins, you've graduated as a chiropractor, you recognize a need within the community, you love serving, you want to empower people, and you've got this a motivation that your why is there, because the why always creates the how. So it's like, I want to make an impact, I want to make a difference. I'm not going to be satisfied with being a chiropractor, having a small practice, having an insignificant impact. I want to have reach, and I want to be a role model and a leader, because we need strong women leaders. So there's a motivation there. And now you start working on that throughout your career. You learn, you grow, you develop. As you said, you started writing a blog post 14 years ago, I think you said, and 2 a month. So you're already committed to the engagement and education process. And you continue to learn. And during that period of time, were you doing in-house workshops? Were you doing presentation before you got to the book, before you got to the being a radio and TV personality? You were constantly learning and utilizing that learning to share with your community and educate patients and expand out your reach and your influence. How did that come about in terms of, you always had the motivation, but was it deliberate? Did it happen by chance?
I think that's a very good question, Marcus. And I think, and you probably will agree with me, that if you go back 24 years ago when you adjusted a patient, I think people responded much more quickly. I think our lifestyle have become more toxic. People are not eating the right food and so forth. So I felt that, okay, I'm adjusting my patient, I'm clearing their nervous system, and they're getting good results. But what can I do for them when they're outside of my office, and to make sure that they're living the chiropractic lifestyle that you and I live? And they're not calling it that, but if you look at it, that's what you and I do day in and day out. So for me, it was for better results with my patients, and also because we don't see our patients for long periods of time. We see them more often than, let's say, any other practitioner. So for me, it was a matter of just giving them little bits of information when they came in, but also having something that I can leverage, when they're outside of my office. It supports what I do. It just made sense to me.
It's amazing. So now you're getting, your practice has grown, you're impacting, and you're realizing that you're developing your knowledge and expertise. You're helping them in broader scope with their diet, their exercise, their lifestyle. You are an incredible fitness expert in your own life by how you apply health principles to your own life, and you're sharing that with people. And so now you're getting all these questions. You want to help them more, and you document that in your blog post, and you realize that it can start to come together in the form of a book. So the first book, I believe, was Wellness on the Go, which you co-authored, and then there was Hack Your Health Habits. So how did the first book come about?
Oh, so I worked with a life coach and we really got along great. And we said, let's write a book together. And I'm glad it was with somebody else from my first book, because it's easy to give up. But if you have somebody else, you're like, oh my God, I can't let her down. And, sharing half of the work was nice. And again, Marcus, don't forget, French is my first language. So I always joke, if I can write a book, everyone can write a book, because if you're not good at writing, and I mean, we can talk about strategies, but I recorded myself a lot. So I'd record my ideas, my thoughts, and then one of my team members is an amazing writer, smart girl, and she understands me and grabs my brain. So, I would record, she would go through it, and then I'm pretty good at editing. So starting with a blank page is very intimidating. My mind goes so fast, like it's I can't spit it out fast enough. So for me, that was a good process. So if people don't necessarily like to write, there's different ways to go about it. So.
Yeah, that's great. In fact, I'd say that's epidemic within the chiropractic profession. Just about every author that I've interviewed has gone through a similar process, and just about every chiropractor that I've worked with or other healthcare practitioner, they all prefer the interview style or conversational style process.
I mean, we have some colleagues that are amazing writers. I can think of a few friends. When I read their posts, I'm like, oh, I wish I wrote this well. And you're one of them. I think you're a tremendous writer. So that was the first book. And then the second book, it's actually a funny story. I was doing a TV segment, and the host had this cute little help book, and it was tiny, mostly picture with one concept. And I flipped through that. I was pretty impressed. And I'm like, geez, it's something literally I could have written. So I'm like, you know what, maybe I should write a second book. And this thing was tiny, and then I end up with this. So I don't know what happened in the process, but I joke with the TV host and I are friends, and I said, it's all your fault, that I took on that second book and that journey. I don't regret any bits of it, because like I said, it just makes you own the knowledge so much more when you can write the content and explain it in a succinct way.
Absolutely. I know that in addition to the book, and we're going to come back to Hack Your Health Habits in a moment, but when we go back to the Wellness on the Go book, you also developed the Roadmap to Wellness, which was an education program that extends beyond that. And the Hack Your Health Habits also has the online coaching program, Hack Your Health Habits Mastery Program. Now, just before I talk about that, one thing I like to really emphasize when I work with practitioners is that Author Mastery focuses on the 4 Ps. It starts with firstly, the podium, or the book in print, the podium, the practice, and the product. So you want to be a best-selling author. So you want to write the book. Then you want to be able to speak, have speaking opportunities and engagements to extend that opportunity. And it needs to express itself within the practice so that you can grow and have a care program linked to what you do, and then ultimately have products as a back end. When those 4 Ps are interacted, the pen, the podium, the practice, and the product, you have the opportunity to have massive leverage. So talk us through that process of, you've written Wellness on the Go, and then you create this, wellness university as a back end to that.
Yeah. So I'm all about taking action. So even the book, Hack Your Health Habits, has the word habits, because we see it with people. Oh, I know I should work out. I know I should eat better. I know I should do this, but they're not doing it. So I've been reading and digging deep in psychology of habits and what makes people take action and not take action. So at the end of each chapter, I wanted people to act. So I created these 3 levels of hacking your habits. And then for each chapter, I even give example for people. I also attach it to a playbook for each of the chapter that people, it's a free download when people purchase the book that they can use, because I wanted them to read a chapter, read about, I don't know, again, intermittent fasting or beauty products, toxicity, and so forth. And then I wanted them to sit down and say, okay, make a list of the things you want to improve upon. Is it a level 1? Is it a level 2? Is it a level 3? Because dealing with habits is different depending on the complexity. So I wanted them to take action. And then I had patients that I had in mind to do another program too with this book. But I had patients that I'd read the book and they wanted more. So I'm like, okay, how can I dig deeper? So through, taking courses on, how to design a membership platform and having a journey and all of that, I designed this program. And it starts, on the journey of understanding the basic. And then at the end, we're talking about epigenetic and biome testing and all of that stuff. But I always say you can't start here. Health is a journey. You need to make sure that you cover your basics. So it's great. It's a bit long to create, but once it's created, you have it anytime that I do webinars, anytime that I'm speaking, I'll either drive to the book, to the online program. And, the book and the playbook are amazing start for people. But if people are, wanting to dig deeper or if their health is already, they're fairly knowledgeable, they want to go more into those biohacking and, more advanced strategies. So it's giving them the resources. And then for me, it just made sense because I wanted people to take action. It's one thing to read about something, but if you're not taking action, and that applies to us as well. When we take a course on anything, it's like, okay, I understand what's the next step. So I guess I'm a person of action, and I like my patients or the people that read to take action as well. So I wanted to lay the ground for that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think there's absolute genius in that when you think about it. The practitioner goes, I just want to help as many people as I possibly can. And they go into practice and they adjust. And then we can extend that. We can, okay, I can write the book to reinforce the education I deliver, to answer the questions they have. And then I want them to take more action. So I produce an action, a handout, a playbook, an autoresponder. And then I create a program behind that to infuse that knowledge, understanding, wisdom into their lifestyle. And then I reinforce that with additional communication messages. And for you, one step further, you then go and express that in a broader scale. You put together summits, or you do more speaking engagements, you do the health and wellness expo. So you're constantly adding value to your community, to your patient, to your database, and expanding that through greater reach into communities that you haven't necessarily reached before because of this message. So there's a really powerful strategic process. Did you design it this way, or again,
I've been paying attention to other industries and how other people do it. So yes, I did it strategically. One thing though that I did more recently is I partnered up with other chiropractors, and we're co-hosting a webinar, the both of us, and I'm sharing my book or shipping a case of book to the practitioner, and then they can also purchase my program and the other doctor gets an affiliate. And that's one thing that I find we're not doing enough in our profession, is leveraging each other's specialties. I'd love to do this with you on arthritis. It's not a topic that I necessarily talk about often, and maybe not everyone is more on the functional aspect or lifestyle aspect. So why not leverage a colleague? So I've done that a few times, and we've had a blast. I'm making the other person look great, and it's just kind of teamwork. So we've had I'm going to move forward a lot more with that. It's a strategy that I'm having a lot of fun. So it's, the doctor doesn't have to write the book and necessarily, and they can share the expertise. But if someone were to write a book, that's an entire new avenue that you can reach people, especially now. Speaking engagement are going to be more challenging. I know I reverted back to webinars like crazy during the last few months, and actually I was preparing one all afternoon for this week. It seems that people are really liking consuming the information through webinar. And I mean, with a book that deep and that complex, I have so much that I can talk about. I can probably create 20 webinars out of this thing. So
yeah, it's amazing. And I know that you love the word collaboration. I think that's a really incredible opportunity for people. Maybe they haven't written their book, or they're in the process of writing their book, or maybe they don't even necessarily want to write a book, but having heard you speak, they're like, I don't have to write the book. I can call up Dr. Nat and say, I love your book. Can I have 100 in my practice? Can we do a training program for my team? And as you said, an affiliate opportunity there. So it's just, again, I think this is genius, the way that you've set this up. It's incredible. And the opportunity for other practitioners to not only learn from what we're talking about here, but to expand their service to their patients and to their community by bringing your knowledge and wisdom to them, which is now more accessible at any point in history because of media, digital media, and online platforms, which is so exciting. With the radio and TV personality, I said not everybody is either comfortable on stage or even on video. Certainly getting those opportunities is incredible. How did you go about, linking up with people to create those opportunities?
I made them.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I started an expo, I guess, 14 years ago, knocking on doors because my patients were asking me, again, the internet was not as extensive as it was 14 years ago, and people, do you know a good acupuncturist? Do you know, so I'm like, why don't I just put together under one roof? So I started with maybe, 30 vendors. And it was funny because I was knocking on doors and saying, do you want to be part of my expo as a vendor? How many people are you expecting? I don't know. And then, the vendors, I would tell my patients, and how many vendors are you? I don't know. So, I started fairly small, but then it blew into something pretty big for 12 years. And then the 13th year, I took a break because this is when I launched my book. And then this year, even before all of this happening in the world right now, I took it virtually. So we did a virtual summit. We had 15 health and wellness professionals from Ottawa sharing their expertise. And the idea was to drive patients back to those practitioners or gyms or yoga studio and so forth. So definitely doing that again this year. So doing an expo like this, we ended up being over 2,500 people going through the doors every year, got me a lot of media, and I would go and promote. Plus, I was bringing keynote speaker that had higher profile, like Dr. William Davis, who wrote The Weak Belly. Some Canadian people you may not know, but so having those guests, I was able to get them on TV and then develop relationship with the media. So that was, I'm like, okay, I want a platform, I want to speak, I want to share my message. I didn't go ahead at it the easy way, but I went at it that way. And same thing, having my own television show and radio. And it's just, you have to just, get invited a few times and then say, okay, well, how about, I had my own show, I can contribute, even if it's just the community TV, you get experience. Now I get on live TV and I'm like, I'm not even nervous about it. And 24 years ago, you would have told me, Nathalie, you're going to be in English speaking live on TV. I would have said, are you out of your freaking mind? But now that I've done it so many times, and I still make mistakes, I still drop my H's and forget my S's. And funny enough, when it's in French, then I'll use a few English words because that's how we speak often here, switching from one language to the other. But I think you have to go at it, make mistake, and just you're going to get better at it. And there, people are understanding if you're stumbling a little bit at first, and it's just like just be you. And I think that's what people really really appreciate. That you get out there, you have a message, and you just want to share it.
It's just like incredible. People listening, watching this. Let's put this in context. You might think, okay, I could never be there, but as you've seen with Dr. Nat, it starts with, I've just got a vision, I've got a plan, I've got a desire to do something. I knock on doors, I write blog posts, I develop content, I grow my expertise. If I don't know something, I learn. If I can't do it myself, I collaborate, and I continue to build this over a period of time. So this doesn't happen overnight. This is something that is driven by a desire to serve. And I know that your heart just explodes with the desire to empower people, to help them live their best life. And when you have that within you, the natural byproduct is to want to make an impact, but it's the actions that you take that have produced that incredible outcome.
A podcast is also a good way. I had a podcast for a whole year. I just, ran out of steam with other projects, but I loved it, and I interviewed interesting people. I learn, and it's just a great way, again, to position yourself as an expert in your community, or more globally. It's not, it doesn't require too much. And I think the more you can get out there and create and build those relationships, going back to the expo, it's with all the vendors, the relationship that I built, and then the speakers, because we had breakout session as well. So it's such a good way for you to get known in your community when you do that. And now virtually, you can do it quite easily as well.
And what does it mean for your practice in terms of, has it been a tool that has expanded and grown your practice, added value?
Oh, totally. So the physical expo that I organized was literally around the corner from my practice. And the goal was to bring people into the practice. So my team would have a booth there screening people using the Insight subluxation station. And I mean, it would fluctuate from one year to the other, but I've seen some years bringing in, 60, 80 new patients for a neurospinal evaluation. So and what was cool too is it's rare for us chiropractor that people will come and say, I have nothing wrong with me. I just want to be checked for subluxation. It doesn't happen too often, right? But I found that the people that go to a wellness expo are already wellness minded. So they were booking themselves to say, I loved your presentation on stage. It made sense. Never thought of a chiropractor. I'm coming in for a checkup. I'm like, wow, this is awesome, right? So these people didn't know chiropractic could help if you didn't have back pain or neck pain. So for me, it was just such a good opportunity to educate them and show them that maybe they have, they had such a great lifestyle, but they were missing the chiropractic component, to take their health to the next level. So it was very, very productive to bring patient back in the practice. And like I said, the media, and then all the relationship that I built with everyone in the community. And it's nice. And like I said, I've been in practice for long enough that I think most people know who I am in our community. And I think it's just because I've been involved. I've organized women events, women wellness and wisdom. I love events. I love sharing information, and I also learn from other people. So I like and hanging out with other smart, either doctors, practitioners, other women, because if we elevate our, each other, we just raise, and I think we need that in our communities.
Absolutely. And I think we spoke about the impact it had on your practice, but your impact that it's had on you professionally, because you're now collaborating with the incredible speakers and you have an opportunity to speak on different platforms and learn from these people, grow with these people and meet new people within your professional sphere. How has it influenced you professionally and outside the scope of the practice, but the relationships and connections you've made?
Oh, tremendously. And funny enough, like in different areas of my personal growth, professional growth. So I think the more you get out there overall, the more connection you're going to make. And like you said, I love collaborating with other people. And even if it's in a completely different industry, because you can always look back and say, oh, this is a completely different industry, but how can this apply to me, my system, my way of communicating in the practice? Or, because I kind of have two website, one for the clinic and one for myself as a speaker and an author. And I'm always looking on how people are doing things so I can better my communication. I even came up with a Hack Your Health Habit personality quiz, which I think is pretty clever, actually, because not everyone wants to go to the gym and not everyone does well with this and that. So I came up with 4 types of personality. So it's just, how can you keep people engaged? So for me, it's a matter of always coming up with something to engage people and something new also to talk to my patients. Every webinar that I do, I partner up with a common friend of ours, and we have a program online for each of those with supplements and so forth. So everyone's kind of excited to, okay, what's the next one? How is it going to relate to me? So for me, I also need a stimulation with something new and exciting to share with my patients.
It's amazing. As we wrap this up, I just want to ask two, I think, really important questions for people to have their own breakthrough in terms of the opportunities there that's for them. And the first is for the practitioner that is uncertain that they can do what you've been able to do, that they could achieve success and be on a platform or write a book. What would you say to them if they're sitting back saying, it's okay for Nat, she's like amazing, I could never be like her? What would you say to them?
I think you have to ask yourself the question why you want to write a book, and then tell other people. It's like, just going back to the example of let's say a person who wants to lose 30 pounds and is going to tell the world, and now, wow, I told the world I better, get going on this. I find this really worked for me. Once I had committed on live TV, was going to write another book. So couldn't really go back on that one. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm writing another book. Figure out why, who you're writing the book for, and then just make the commitment, tell everybody, and then try to really find the people that can help you. But if you don't have the right people, they will show up. Once you start the process, who you need will show up. I'll give you an example. One of my patients, older gentleman, is lying on my table, and why does he talk to me about his son that they have no idea? Well, he's a book editor. He ended up editing my book. I was looking for another person. I didn't like the one that I had. And as much as the man drove me nuts, he did such a great job at making the book more clear. So, it was just me talking to this patient because, I guess I brought up the fact that I was writing a book, and he said that, and I ended up. So I think if you decide, the things that you're going to need are going to position themselves, but you do need to commit. It can't be, I'd like to write a book. So you really have to commit and go to it. You may go this way and then steer this way and steer this way. I can't tell you how many times I changed the cover of this, the title of this. It's a work in progress, but guess what? If you don't start, it's not going to happen. So that's what I would say.
That's beautiful. And I think that what I understand is, one, you've got to find your why, and you've got to be committed to the process. But anybody can achieve what they put their mind to. Final question, which is really what I think is so important for so many practitioners that they lack, and at times I've been incredibly guilty of this as well. What is your one suggestion for becoming a person of action? Because we all have ideas, but an idea unactioned is worth nothing compared to even a poor idea well actioned. So what's your breakthrough strategy for being such a driven person to take action and complete?
So I am more productive and able to write and concentrate in the morning. So I organize my clinic hours that, I'm at home in the morning and I have the space and the mindset to be able to write. So I even changed my entire routine, because I used to go do CrossFit first thing in the morning and then, would write later, but I changed that around and said, okay, you're going to get downstairs at a certain time, and you're going to sit down with your cup of coffee, and that you have something to write or nothing to write. You're going to just pick a topic and start researching and that kind of stuff. So for me, it was making the commitment, but also allowing it in my schedule. And let's face it, we're all pretty busy. So for us to add, 5 hours, 10 hours a week, it's a big commitment. But if you don't carve it in your agenda as part of a process, and once you get going, I remember, looking forward to starting to write, because I had a question about this. I needed to research this. So it became, because of my personality that I love to learn, it became easy because I wanted to learn what's going on with this. What's the final say on this and that? So again, it's just a matter of starting. So if you're more productive at night when the kids are going to bed, maybe that's your way, but just make sure that you carve it, just sit down and just do it. And sometimes maybe it'll be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and sometimes you may end up being super productive. And I guess another thing is, let's not be too hard on ourselves. Sometimes it's productive, and sometimes it's just less productive. But if you keep at it, that 80-20 rule, I'm sure, would add up very nicely here to say that 80% of the time you're probably productive, but the other 20, well, it is what it is, right? So
absolutely. Sounds like the success by design is just a process of getting very clear on the why, making a commitment to that process, continue designing the time for it, and maintaining that action until you achieve the results that you want, which is an incredible blueprint for success, and something that I know you have done well, to the point of being considered an incredible master in our profession. Dr. Nathalie, I'm grateful for you, your service to the planet through everything you do, the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you. And I know your book, your link, and the ability to work with you will be available underneath this video. So people, if you want to reach out, Dr. Nat is an absolute genius in helping people in that regard. And make sure you grab the book as well. I love it. It's incredible. Thank you.
And thank you, Marcus, for doing this, because like I said, if we can encourage more chiropractors to write books, it elevates the profession. Not that we're not already brilliant, but again, if people were hidden gem and people don't know about us, it's not going to do us any good. So I think everybody has a part of expertise, maybe it's on scoliosis, maybe like what is in your practice makes you more excited, and what do you want to share, and just put it in writing. Go ahead and make it happen.
Exactly. And I mean, I always think of it in this context. Imagine that, 1,000 chiropractors each write 1,000 best-selling books. That reaches, another 1,000 people that otherwise wouldn't have. We've now got hundreds of thousands, into the order of millions of people getting exposed to chiropractic. The chiropractic story expands. The purpose of chiropractic becomes fulfilled. I mean, this is one strategy that I believe, and from my perspective, the way I utilize it in my practice, one of the most profound, powerful outreach marketing strategies. So when you talk about elevating the chiropractic profession, this is something that truly motivates and excites me, and I wholeheartedly support that concept, and know that chiropractic will be elevated by the chiropractors claiming their power, expressing their expertise, and sharing that within the form of a book out there in the community. So thanks for highlighting that.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Nat. Appreciate you. Look forward to connecting again in future. And this has been, again, an incredible, wonderful insight interview. And if you are not going to go back and re-listen to this, please, I'm going to get you to rethink that, because if you haven't taken notes, if you've been listening to this in your car or watching it while you do something else, get the notes out, because you have a blueprint for incredible success after having listened to Dr. Nat here. Thank you, everybody. And I look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Thank you, Dr. Nat.